For decades, we've been told to fear sugar. And for good reason. It's been linked to diabetes, weight gain, inflammation, and a host of chronic illnesses. But what if I told you there's something even more dangerous? Something far more sneaky hiding right there in your everyday meals? Something that doesn't show up as sugar on a nutrition label, but hits your blood sugar even harder than pure glucose. This isn't fear-mongering. It's about understanding the quiet truths in our food system, truths that affect millions of older Americans every day. You see, this particular carbohydrate is often labeled as having zero sugar. It sounds harmless. Sometimes it's even marketed as part of a healthy lifestyle. But research from institutions like Harvard and the Mayo Clinic shows that it may contribute more to insulin resistance, visceral fat, and inflammation than sugar ever could. And what's worse, it's found in everything from crackers to hot dogs to infant formula. You might be thinking, but I eat pretty healthy, I read the labels. The reality is, this ingredient is rarely called what it truly is. It's disguised under names like maltodextrin, modified food starch, or simply corn starch. So today, we're diving deep into what might be the most overlooked and misunderstood threat in our modern food supply. If you're over 50, paying attention to what goes into your body is more important than ever. This isn't just about avoiding disease. It's about reclaiming your health, one meal at a time. And it starts with knowing the truth. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll never look at a sugar-free label the same way again. So what exactly is this hidden carbohydrate that's causing such concern? It's not sugar. It's not even labeled as sugar. In fact, on most nutrition labels, it's listed as 0 grams of sugar. But make no mistake, this carb has a stronger and faster impact on your blood sugar than many sweeteners ever could. It's called industrial starch, and while that might sound like a technical term, you've probably seen it on ingredient labels under names like maltodextrin, modified corn starch, wheat starch, or simply food starch. These aren't the natural starches found in whole vegetables or legumes. These are refined, isolated, and heavily processed starches created in labs and food factories. They're used to add bulk, improve texture, and extend shelf life, not to nourish your body. Now let's take a moment to understand what a starch is. By definition, starch is a chain of glucose molecules, a complex carbohydrate. In its natural form, such as in sweet potatoes, oats, or carrots, it's bound with fiber and nutrients, which slows down digestion and provides a steady release of energy. But when starch is industrially processed, it's stripped of its natural fibers and nutrients. It's ground down to ultrafine powder, sometimes bleached, and modified using chemical processes. What you're left with is a highly refined carbohydrate that breaks down into glucose extremely quickly, often faster than table sugar. In fact, according to research from Harvard University, the glycemic index of maltodextrin, one of the most common industrial starches, ranges from 85 to 105. That's even higher than glucose, which has a GI of 100. That means it spikes your blood sugar even faster than the sugar you stir into your coffee. And yet, Because it's not technically classified as a sugar, many people assume it's safe. That's part of the problem. When you see sugar-free on a label, it doesn't mean the product is free from ingredients that elevate your blood sugar. It just means it doesn't contain chemically defined sugars like sucrose or high fructose corn syrup. That creates a major blind spot, especially for older adults who are trying to manage their weight, their blood sugar, or prevent chronic illness. You could be avoiding soda, candy, and desserts only to find that the protein shake or the gluten-free bread you're eating is filled with fast-acting starches that undo all your hard work. So where do these starches show up? Practically everywhere. They're in snack foods like crackers, chips, cookies, and cereal. They're in frozen dinners and microwave meals. They're in sports drinks and processed meats like hot dogs and deli slices. Even baby formula often contains modified food starch. Why? Because it's cheap. In the U.S., industrial starches like cornstarch are subsidized, meaning the government helps pay part of the production cost. That allows manufacturers to use them in huge quantities at just a few cents per pound, making their products look fuller and feel more satisfying, without actually delivering nutrition. What's more, these starches are often added alongside other concerning ingredients like seed oils and artificial additives. When combined with high heat processing, they can create compounds that may be harmful to our cells, our metabolism, and even our gut microbiome. The scary part is, these ingredients don't taste sweet. If you take a spoonful of maltodextrin or modified cornstarch, it may taste bland or slightly chalky. That's why most people don't realize how much of it they're consuming. But chew a piece of white bread slowly and you'll notice it starts to taste sweet in your mouth. That's your saliva breaking down the starch into sugar. And that's exactly what happens in your body, just much faster with processed starch. To be clear, we're not talking about the potatoes your grandmother baked on Sunday or the brown rice in a homemade meal. Those whole foods contain natural starches that work with your body, not against it. The problem is with the refined, isolated industrial starches that have become the backbone of so many processed foods. These are not just empty calories. They're quick-burning fuel that disrupts blood sugar, accelerates fat storage, and leaves you craving more. And for older adults, especially those managing prediabetes, insulin resistance, or inflammatory conditions, that's a recipe for long-term damage. Let's take a closer look at how this industrial starch affects the aging body. As we get older, our metabolism naturally slows down. Our cells become less responsive to insulin. And the risks of chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, and cardiovascular disease begin to rise. This makes us even more vulnerable to the harmful effects of what we eat. And unfortunately, industrial starch doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It actively contributes to these problems in ways that often go unnoticed. When you consume refined starches like maltodextrin or modified food starch, your body rapidly converts them into glucose. This sudden spike in blood sugar forces your pancreas to release a large amount of insulin, the hormone responsible for moving sugar from your bloodstream into your cells. If this happens occasionally, your body can handle it. But when it happens several times a day, as it often does with a typical processed diet, your cells start to become resistant to insulin. This is known as insulin resistance, a condition that affects nearly half of Americans over the age of 60. Left unaddressed, insulin resistance can lead directly to type 2 diabetes. But even before that point, it can cause chronic fatigue, stubborn weight gain around the belly, and accelerated aging of your internal organs. And it doesn't stop there. Industrial starches also contribute to the buildup of visceral fat. That's the deep fat stored around your liver, pancreas, and intestines. Unlike the fat you can pinch on your arms or waist, visceral fat is metabolically active. It produces inflammatory chemicals that increase your risk of heart disease and stroke. According to the Mayo Clinic, visceral fat is especially dangerous because it wraps around your internal organs and is strongly associated with insulin resistance, high blood pressure, and abnormal cholesterol levels. In other words, it creates a dangerous internal environment that puts constant stress on your system. Another concern is the impact these starches have on your gut health. Inside your digestive tract live trillions of bacteria, some helpful, others potentially harmful. A healthy balance of gut bacteria supports digestion, nutrient absorption, immune function, and even mood regulation. But when you regularly consume refined starches, you feed the wrong types of bacteria, those that promote inflammation, gas, and bloating. Research from Cornell University shows that maltodextrin can suppress beneficial strains like Lactobacillus rotari, while promoting the growth of harmful microbes such as E. coli. Over time, this imbalance can lead to a condition known as leaky gut, where the lining of your intestines becomes more permeable, allowing toxins and bacteria to enter your bloodstream. This low-grade, chronic inflammation has been linked to autoimmune disorders, joint pain, brain fog, and many other issues that become more common with age. Beyond the gut, there are other biochemical consequences worth knowing. When industrial starch is combined with seed oils, a common pairing in chips, crackers, and fried foods, and then subjected to high heat during cooking, it can produce harmful compounds known as advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These substances have been studied for their role in promoting cellular aging, oxidative stress, and inflammation in the brain and arteries. They're also known to damage collagen, the protein that keeps your skin, joints, and blood vessels strong and flexible. That's why a diet high in refined starch and processed fats may not only affect how you feel on the inside but also how you look on the outside. There's also a troubling connection between these starches and cognitive health. Some studies suggest that chronically high blood sugar and insulin resistance may increase the risk of memory loss and Alzheimer's disease. Researchers have found that insulin plays a role not only in glucose metabolism but also in brain signaling. When insulin signaling is impaired, something that can happen with repeated exposure to blood sugar spikes, the brain may become less efficient at clearing out amyloid plaques, a hallmark of Alzheimer's. While industrial starch alone isn't the sole cause of cognitive decline, it may be a significant contributor, especially in the context of a processed diet and aging brain. In short, the effects of industrial starch go far beyond simple weight gain or an energy.